Last time, she stood at a podium in Sweet Auburn and told 400 people that their worst choices were not their final ones. He stood in a side corridor and forgot what he came to do. Tonight we find out what happens the morning after. What happens when a woman who has built everything on the practice of seeing clearly sees something she was not supposed to see. And what happens when a man who has spent 10 years feeling nothing wakes up feeling everything, and does not know what to do with it. She began to speak. I made choices that I thought had defined me permanently. He was calculating the northeast corner approach timing. I sat in a therapist's office in a city I barely knew. In a country that did not owe me anything. He was noting the food vendor's position relative to the corner gap. And I thought, this is it. This is the version of me I am stuck with. He stopped noting things. Not a decision. The noting simply stopped. The way a clock stops between 1 second and the next without warning. He stood in the side corridor with his back against the wall. And he listened. Her voice had a quality he was not prepared for. He had heard hundreds of speeches. He understood the mechanics. The personal disclosure that creates identification. The vulnerability offered as an invitation. The slight lag between a speaker's thought and their expression that revealed the calculation underneath the delivery. There was no lag. She was not delivering a message. She was reporting from a location. Speaking from the inside of something she had actually lived. And the difference between that and everything he had heard at every other event in 7 cities over 10 years was the difference between a recording of rain and actual rain. He stood in the side corridor. He did not map exits. He listened. You will make mistakes that feel final. They are not final. You just have to keep choosing the next right thing until the right things outnumber the wrong ones. The crowd went still. He went still in a different way. They are not final. He had never heard anyone say this with specificity. With the weight of someone who had actually tested the claim and come out the other side of it with evidence. Not as comfort. Not as the kind of thing people say when they want to make you feel better without engaging with the actual weight of what you carry. As instruction. He thought about the argument. The curfew. The cold deliberate exit. The back of his own head as he walked away from the door. Her voice behind him saying his name once. His choice not to turn around. They are not final. He had organized 10 years around the belief that they were. That what happened at 20 had sealed the available territory of everything after it. That the only honest response to what he had become was to inhabit it without complaint. He had never once questioned this. Until right now. Standing in a side corridor in Atlanta, Georgia. Listening to a woman he had come here to remove from a political race describe the exact shape of the cage he had been living inside. And tell him it had a door. She finished. The crowd responded the way crowds respond to things that are real. He watched it move through 400 people. He did not applaud. But he watched it and understood it differently than he had ever understood a crowd response before. Not as a data point. Not as an operational variable. As 400 people telling him something he had not asked to be told. He looked at her one last time. She touched the left earring. Brief. Habitual. A return to something she carried. He turned and walked out through the press entrance gate. Still on its simple latch. Exactly as he had found it. He walked 2 blocks east to his car. Sat in the driver's seat. Did not start the engine. Looked at his hands on the steering wheel. They are not final. He sat there for a long time. Then he started the car. Drove back to the hotel. And the rule about nothing being personal felt for the first time in 10 years like a rule that was going to be very difficult to keep. He called Mace first. He always called Mace first. Report, Mace said. Rally was tonight, Orlando said. Security is light on the east side. 2 visible. 1 plain clothes. Northeast corner gap is viable. East entrance provides a secondary option. Approach timeline. 48 hours for confirmation. 24 for execution. That sits at the edge of the window. It sits inside it. Pause. Clean, Mace said. Always, Orlando said. The call ended. He set the phone on the nightstand. Looked at it. He had told Mace 48 hours for confirmation. He did not need 48 hours for confirmation. He had everything he needed from tonight. He had asked for 48 hours because he needed 48 hours for something that was not confirmation of an approach. He did not examine this directly. Not yet. He lay back on the bed. Shoes still on. Stared at the ceiling. The ceiling gave him nothing back. You just have to keep choosing the next right thing. He had been hearing this sentence since 7:22 p.m. It was not going anywhere. He tried to return to the approach parameters. The northeast corner. The east entrance gap. The timing window. He got 3 steps in. They are not their worst decisions. They are what they choose after. He stopped. He thought about his mother. The kitchen. Small. The window above the sink facing the alley. The plant on the sill that received almost no light and survived anyway. The table where they ate. Where important conversations happened. Where he had done homework while she cooked and talked to him about his day with a quality of attention he had not understood the value of until it was no longer available. He thought about the argument. Not for the first time. He had thought about the argument thousands of times in 10 years. But tonight it sat differently. The curfew. The friends. His cold, deliberate exit because he wanted to make a point. Her voice behind him saying his name once from the doorway. His choice not to turn around. He had built 10 years on the belief that this choice, and everything that followed it, had permanently defined the territory available to him. That the version of him who drew buildings in notebook margins and believed that what you built mattered was gone. Used up. Filed under before. That is a lie. He heard her voice saying it the same way she said it at the podium. Not performing it. Reporting it. From the inside of something she had tested and survived. He sat up on the edge of the bed. Looked at his hands. These. The accumulated marks of 10 years of a life organized around a belief he had never once questioned. He reached for the small notebook he carried everywhere. Opened it to a blank page. Wrote one word. Architect. Looked at it. Then turned to the next page and began writing. Not an operational plan. Notes. Questions. The way the initiative would actually function. The knowledge transfer model. The gap between experiential knowledge and institutional knowledge. What it would mean to build a space where the 4th doctor's knowledge reached the first 3 before his mother ever sat in anyone's office. He wrote for 2 hours. Did not review what he had written. Closed the notebook. Set it on the nightstand. He reached for his phone. Looked at it for a long time. He did not call Mace. He opened his contacts. Stopped at a number he had looked up at 2 in the morning the previous night and not called. Saved under a name he had not used in 10 years. He had transferred phones 3 times since she died. Each time he had not transferred that contact. Because an empty contact with that name was a specific kind of unbearable. He had saved this number under that name last night. He did not fully know why. He was not going to examine it directly. Some things needed to arrive in their own time. He closed the contacts. Opened a new screen. Dialed from memory. The campaign's community outreach number. Publicly listed. He had told himself last night he was looking it up for professional reasons. He had known even then that it was not true. It rang twice. I wondered if it would be tonight or tomorrow, she said. Her voice was different on the phone. Lower. More interior. The voice of someone speaking to a specific person rather than a room. Which was its own kind of intimacy. He was not prepared for it. How did you know I would call? He said. Because you came to the rally, she said. People who are only doing a job stop showing up when the job parameters shift. You kept showing up. He was quiet. What do I call you? She asked. Orlando. Naledi, she said. Even though he already knew. It is late. But I have time if you do. He looked at the ceiling. You said you would help me, he said. What does that mean? It means I will talk to you, she said. That is all it means right now. Just talk. He lay back against the headboard. Shoes still on. Old habit. He said. And for the first time in 10 years Orlando Siciliani talked to someone who was not his handler. Not his employer. Not a target. He talked to a woman who already knew the worst category he fell into. And had answered the phone anyway. He did not say much. But he said more than he had said to anyone in a decade. When the call ended at 12:43 in the morning he set the phone on the nightstand. Lay in the dark. And felt the specific quality of a silence that was different from all the silences he was used to. Not empty. Not the silence of a room with no one in it. The silence of a room where something had just begun. He reached over and turned off the lamp. He did not sleep well. But for the first time in 10 years the reason he did not sleep well was not the nightmare. Not the killer's faces. Not his mother's voice saying his name once from the doorway. Not the 3 hours in the car outside the apartment building after he had done the thing that could not be undone. The reason he did not sleep well was that something had opened. Something he did not know how to close. And somewhere beneath the discipline and the sealed architecture of 10 years, he was not entirely sure he wanted to. He ran every morning at 6. He had done this since he was 22. When the handler who first brought him in told him that a body kept in discipline is a mind kept in discipline. That his particular profession had no room for either to slip. He had not missed a morning in 8 years. Piedmont Park at 6 a.m. was its own kind of world. Dog walkers. Early cyclists. A handful of runners like him who had made peace with the particular loneliness of being awake before the city caught up. The air was cool. October doing what October does in Atlanta. Not cold enough to bite but cool enough to remind you that warmth is no longer guaranteed. He ran hard. 5 miles. The same route he had mapped the morning after arriving in Atlanta. Old habit. New city. Same discipline. He ran and did not think. This was a skill he had developed over 10 years. The ability to be entirely in his body when he needed to clear the previous night's debris. To let the miles process what the mind could not. It was not working this morning. You just have to keep choosing the next right thing. He pushed his pace. His breathing adjusted. His body complied. His mind did not. Can a bad person really be whole? He had not asked this question out loud. Not yet. But it had been sitting in his chest since the rally. In a place he could not locate precisely and could not evict. He ran harder. It did not help. He stopped at the water fountain near the east entrance. Hands on his knees. Catching his breath. He straightened. Looked out at the park. It was filling now. Fully. The particular morning filling of a public space when the city begins to remember it exists. A woman pushing a stroller on the path ahead of him. Moving at the pace of someone who is not in a hurry and has decided not to be. 2 old men at a chess table near the fountain. Already set up. Already playing. The quiet focus of men who have been doing this together long enough that they do not need to speak between moves. A father and a young boy throwing a football back and forth on the grass. The boy dropping it more than he caught it. The father not minding. Throwing it again each time. Orlando watched this for a moment. The ordinary machinery of civilian life. He had observed it for 10 years from the outside. From the perimeters of events. From hotel room windows. From parked cars on side streets in 7 cities. He had never felt the pull of it. Not once. Until this morning. Standing at a water fountain in Piedmont Park, he felt something adjacent to it. Something that did not have a clean name. Something that lived in the vicinity of wanting without being specific enough to be called want. He pulled out his phone. A message from G. Status update required by noon. He looked at it. Put the phone back in his pocket. Looked out at the park again. The father threw the football. The boy dropped it. Picked it up. Threw it back. He took the phone out again. Opened a different screen. The campaign's community outreach number. He had saved it last night after the call ended. Not under her name. Not under anything that could be explained if someone looked at his phone. Just the number. Named. Sitting in his recent calls like evidence of something he had not yet decided to admit to. He looked at it. He was not going to call her at 6 in the morning. That was not, he did not have a reason for that. He simply was not going to do it. He put the phone back in his pocket. Started walking back toward the hotel. Past the chess table. One of the old men looked up as he passed. Nodded. The specific nod of one early morning person acknowledging another. The small currency of people who have chosen to be awake before the world requires it. Orlando nodded back. Kept walking. He was halfway back to the hotel when he stopped. Turned around. Walked back to the park entrance. Stood there for a moment. Then he took out his phone and opened the number. He did not call it. He looked at it. Then he put the phone away and walked back to the hotel without looking at it again. He showered. He dressed. He sat at the small desk in the hotel room and opened his laptop to the brief. He read the same paragraph 4 times without retaining it. He closed the laptop. Picked up the notebook from the nightstand. Opened it to the page where he had written architect. Looked at the word. Then he turned to the notes he had written the night before. The initiative. The knowledge transfer model. The 4th doctor. The gap between what medicine knew and what medicine delivered. He read through what he had written with the specific attention of someone reading something that surprised them. He had written 8 pages. He had not known he was going to write 8 pages. He closed the notebook. Sat back. His phone buzzed. G again. Noon. Orlando. He looked at the message. He had until noon to provide a status update that contained something true. He had nothing true to provide. What he had was 8 pages of notes about a medical initiative and a word written in a notebook and a phone number he had looked at 4 times this morning without calling. He set the phone face down on the desk and began figuring out what he was going to say to G at noon. The church hall was on the corner of Cascade and Beecher. A single-story building that had been many things over the decades and had settled in its current life into the particular dignity of a space that a community had decided was worth maintaining. The paint on the exterior was fresh. Someone had planted flowers along the front path recently enough that the soil around them was still dark. Inside, folding chairs, long tables with paper tablecloths, ceiling fans turning slowly overhead. The smell of a meal being kept warm in the kitchen at the back. 50 people. Not a rally crowd. Not the charged energy of 400 people oriented toward a single point. Something quieter than that. The specific warmth of a neighborhood that has gathered around a table. Naledi moved through the room the way she moved through all rooms. Fully present. Nobody missed. She knew 3 of the women from her fish market on this side of town. She stopped at each of them. Asked specific questions. Used specific names. Not the names of the women themselves. The names of their children, their grandchildren, the specific details of their lives that she had accumulated over years of showing up in this community and paying attention. This was not strategy. It was simply who she was. She had learned, from Dr. Osei, from Mama Dlamini, from 7 years of building businesses in communities that had every reason not to trust someone new, that the most powerful thing you could offer another person was the evidence that you had been listening. Not performing listening. Actually listening. She was halfway through the room when she looked up. He was standing near the entrance. Dark clothes. No food in his hand. Not talking to anyone. Too large for the room in every sense. Not just physically. The particular way he occupied space. Contained, deliberate, the specific quality of someone whose presence was always a choice rather than an accident. He was looking directly at her. Not with threat. Not with the cold professional assessment she had seen in the security feed photograph. With something that did not yet have a name but that she recognized anyway. She had seen it last night in the side corridor. The same something. She did not break stride. She finished her conversation. Touched the woman's arm. Laughed at something genuine. Moved to the next person. She made her way to the front of the room. She spoke for 12 minutes. Not the rally speech. A different register entirely. Smaller. More interior. The voice she used when she was speaking to a room that did not need to be moved. Only seen. She talked about the fish market. About why she had put it on this side of town specifically. About what it meant to build something in a neighborhood rather than for a neighborhood. The difference between those two things. He talked about the initiative. Not in policy language. In kitchen language. In Mama Dlamini language. In the language of a woman explaining to 50 people at a Wednesday lunch why the knowledge that lives inside people is the most valuable knowledge there is. And why it was worth fighting for. The room listened the way small rooms listen. Completely. When she finished, she did not go back to working the room. She walked toward the entrance. Toward him. She stopped 3 feet away. Neither of them spoke first. The room continued behind her. Chairs scraping, conversations resuming, the kitchen producing sounds of activity. 50 people having lunch. Unaware that anything significant was happening near the door. She looked at him directly. Not performing steadiness. Actually steady. You were at my rally last night, she said. Yes, he said. And the Hargrove dinner in Washington, D.C. 18 months ago. Something moved in his eyes. Not panic. Recalibration. She had more information than he had prepared for. He registered this without showing it. Almost without showing it. He caught it anyway. You did your homework, he said. I always do. She looked at him the way she looked at things when she wanted to see what was actually there rather than what she expected to find. I know what you are, she said. I know why you are probably here. He said nothing. What I don't know, she said, is why you are here. In this room. In the middle of the day. Looking directly at me. He did not answer immediately. Because the honest answer was that he had told himself this was reconnaissance. That he had come to observe her movement patterns in a smaller venue. That this was operational. He was no longer sure that was true. He was no longer sure it had been true when he walked through the door. She watched him not answer. She did not fill the silence. She had learned, from years of negotiation, from therapy, from being a woman who had to earn every room she was ever in, that silence was not a gap to fill. It was information. His silence told her everything she needed to know about why he was actually here. She asked him something then. Not from strategy. Not from any calculated approach. From the place where Mama Dlamini lived in her. The place that therapy had cleared enough space to hear. The place that had learned to ask the question nobody else was asking, because the question nobody was asking was almost always the most important one. Can a bad person really become whole? He went very still. She had not asked it as an accusation. She had not asked it as a challenge. She asked it the way she asked all the questions that mattered, from the inside of having sat with it herself. From the specific authority of someone who had needed the answer and had gone looking for it. The room behind her was warm and full and completely unaware. He stood at the entrance of a church hall in southwest Atlanta and felt the question land in exactly the place it was aimed. After a long moment he said, "I don't know." She nodded. Fully. Once. "That is an honest answer," she said. "Better than most people manage." She reached into the inside pocket of her blazer. Produced a card. Not her campaign card. A plain white card. A single number written on it by hand. Her handwriting, deliberate, unhurried, the handwriting of someone who does not rush the things that matter. "If you want to find out," she said, "call that number. I will help you. If you want to try." She held it out. He looked at it for a moment. Then he took it. Their fingers did not touch. She held his gaze for one more second. Then she turned and walked back into the room. Back to the folding chairs and the ceiling fans and the 50 people who had come to have lunch with their future councilwoman and did not know that the most important conversation of the afternoon had just happened near the door. He stood at the entrance for 30 more seconds. The card in his hand. He looked at it. Turned it over. Turned it back. One number. Her handwriting. Plain white card. He could leave it on the floor. He could walk out and leave it exactly where he was standing, and that would be the end of it. He would go back to the hotel. He would call G. He would provide a real status update. He would complete the approach confirmation in 48 hours. He would do what he came to Atlanta to do. He put the card in his jacket pocket. Walked out into the Atlanta afternoon. The sun was high now. The cool of the morning burned off. The particular warmth of an Atlanta October afternoon that had decided to remind you what summer felt like before it let go completely. He walked to his car. Sat in the driver's seat. Did not start the engine. Put his hand in his jacket pocket. The card was still there. He had known it would be. He started the car. Drove back to the hotel. And the card stayed in his pocket the entire way. He called G at noon. "Status," May said. "Target's security configuration has been upgraded since the rally," Orlando said. "Additional plainclothes added to her movement detail. I need more time to identify a clean approach window." Pause. "How much more time?" 48 hours. Orlando. 48 hours, he said again. "Or the approach is compromised and we have a problem neither of us wants." Mace was quiet for a moment. The specific quiet of a man calculating whether the delay was acceptable against the risk of a compromised job. 48 hours, Mace said. Not 49. The call ended. He set the phone on the desk. Looked at it. He had just bought himself 2 days with a lie that had cost him nothing to construct and everything to consider. The security configuration had not been upgraded. He had not observed anything that suggested additional plainclothes in her detail. He had been at a community lunch in southwest Atlanta and had taken a card from a woman's hand and driven back to a hotel room and was now sitting at a desk with that card on the nightstand and 48 hours that belonged to no one except himself. He did not examine this directly. He picked up the card. Looked at the number. Put it back down. He ordered food he did not taste. Watched television he did not see. Opened his laptop and looked at the brief without reading it. Closed the laptop. Picked up the card. Put it down. Picked it up again. The thing about the card was not the number on it. He had her number. He had called her number last night from memory. He did not need this card for the number. The thing about the card was what taking it meant. He had taken it. He had stood at the entrance of a church hall in southwest Atlanta, and a woman had held out a plain white card with a handwritten number on it and said, "If you want to find out, call me," and he had taken it. He could have left it. He had not left it. And the not leaving it was its own kind of answer to a question he had not yet asked himself directly. He picked up the card a third time, set it back down, stood up, walked to the window. Atlanta below him. Wednesday evening. The city transitioning from the business of the day to the business of the night. Peachtree Street carrying its usual traffic. The restaurants beginning to fill. People moving on the sidewalks with the unhurried energy of a city that has finished its work and is now deciding what to do with itself. Ordinary. All of it completely ordinary. He stood at the window and watched it and felt the specific quality of a man standing outside something he has been observing from a distance for so long that the distance has become invisible to him. He went back to the desk, picked up the card, put it in his hand and kept it there. At 11:47 p.m. he picked up his phone. Dialed. It rang 3 times. "I wondered if tonight or tomorrow," she said. Not surprised. Not performing unsurprise. Simply, accurate. "How did you know I would call?" he said. "Because you took the card," she said. "You could have left it on the floor." "You didn't." He said nothing. "You could have left it in the car," she said. "You didn't do that either." Still nothing. Orlando. His name in her mouth had a specific quality. Not soft. Not hard. Simply, direct. The way she said everything. Like the word meant exactly what it was supposed to mean, and she saw no reason to approach it from an angle. "I'm here," he said. "I know," she said. "That's the point." She did not rush the silence that followed. She had learned, from Dr. Osei, from years of sitting across from people who needed space before they could speak, that the silence before a person says the true thing is not empty. It is full. It is the sound of someone deciding whether to trust you with something real. She waited. He spoke. "You asked me something today," he said. "At the church hall." "I remember." "Can a bad person really become whole?" "Yes." "I want to know if you meant it," he said. "Not as something you say. As something you actually believe." She was quiet for a moment. Not because she did not know the answer. Because she wanted to give him the real one rather than the ready one. "I believe it," she said, "because I have seen it. In myself. In people I have worked with. In my grandmother. Who made more mistakes than she ever told me about and became the most whole person I have ever known." "How?" "By choosing," she said. Repeatedly. Without guarantee. Just choosing the next right thing and then the one after that. For as long as it took. He was quiet. "That sounds simple," he said. "It is simple," she said. "Simple is not the same as easy." He absorbed this. "You said you would help me," he said. "At the church hall. If I wanted to try." "I did." "What does that look like?" "It looks like this," she said. "A phone call. At midnight. You asking real questions. Me giving real answers. And tomorrow you asking more. That's it. That's where it starts," she said. "Nobody becomes whole in one conversation. It takes as long as it takes." He looked at the ceiling. The card was still in his hand. "I need to ask you something," he said. "Ask. Why are you doing this?" The question landed between them. She did not answer immediately. He appreciated that. "Because I saw your face last night," she said finally. "In the side corridor. I saw what happened to it while I was speaking. And I have seen that expression before. I wore it myself once. In a therapist's office in Buckhead. When someone said something that showed me the door out of the place I had been living in. And I am not in the habit of walking past open doors without saying something," she said. "Even when the person standing in front of them is someone I have every practical reason to walk away from." He said nothing. "You came to my rally," she said. "You came to my lunch. You took the card. You called. Orlando, you have been walking toward this door all week. I am simply standing on the other side of it." They talked for 40 minutes. Not about the job. Not about Mace or G or Senator Holt or the 3-day window that had already passed. About small things first. The way conversations that matter always begin with small things. She asked him about Atlanta. What he had seen of it. He told her about the park that morning. The chess players. The father and the boy with the football. She asked what he noticed. He told her. She listened to all of it without interrupting. Then she said, "What did you feel when you watched the boy drop the ball and pick it up again?" He thought about this honestly. "I don't know," he said. "Something. I don't have a word for it." "That's okay," she said. "You don't need the word yet. You just need to keep noticing." When the call ended at 12:51 a.m., he set the phone on the nightstand. Lay back on the bed. The card in his hand. He looked at the ceiling. Something had shifted in the room. Not dramatically. Not in any way he could point to and name. But the quality of the silence was different from the silence that had been here before the call. Less sealed. He set the card on the nightstand next to the notebook. Next to the word architect. He looked at both of them for a moment. Then he turned off the lamp. He still did not sleep well. But the reason had changed again. It was no longer just the opening of something unknown. It was the specific, complicated feeling of a man who had just had a real conversation with another human being for the first time in a very long time. And had discovered, to his considerable discomfort, that he wanted to have another one. He did not go to the park. He sat at the desk instead. Notebook open. The 8 pages of initiative notes in front of him. The card beside the notebook. His phone beside the card. He read through what he had written. All 8 pages. Then he turned to a clean page and kept writing. Not because he had planned to. Because the thinking had not finished yet. He wrote about the 4th Doctor. About what it meant that the knowledge existed, was out there, living inside a 68-year-old man in a semi-retirement, and had not been in the room where his mother needed it. Not because nobody cared. Because there was no structure to put it there. No bridge between what an experienced practitioner knew and what a younger one needed. No institution designed specifically for that transfer. No space built for the purpose of taking what lived inside people and making it available before it retired with them. He wrote about the community center he had designed at 18. The one that existed only on paper. In a folder under a bed in an apartment on the near west side of Chicago that was not his anymore. He had designed it because the existing one was inadequate. Because he had understood, without training, without language for it at 18, that the quality of a space determined the quality of what happened inside it. That if you wanted a community to come together and share what it knew, you had to build a space worthy of that purpose. He stared at what he had written. Then he wrote one more line. The initiative needs a building. He looked at it. Closed the notebook. His phone buzzed. Not G this time. A number he did not recognize. Atlanta area code. He answered. It's Darius Cole, the voice said. Naledi Adams's campaign manager. Orlando said nothing. I think you know who I am, Darius said. And I think you know that I know who you are. So let's skip the part where we pretend otherwise. What do you want? To meet, Darius said. Just you and me. No handlers. No campaign staff. Coffee. 30 minutes. Why? Because Naledi has decided something about you, Darius said. And I have spent 3 years watching her make decisions, and I trust her judgment more than I trust almost anything else in this world. But I also have 18 years in Atlanta politics, and I would like to look at you in person before I decide whether her judgment is correct this time. Orlando was quiet. Where? He said. They met at a diner on Ponce de Leon. A place that had been there long enough to have earned its booths and its coffee and its particular quality of indifference to whoever sat inside it. Darius was already there when Orlando arrived. Mid-40s. Compact. The specific energy of a man who had spent nearly 2 decades learning to read rooms and the people in them and had become very good at it. He watched Orlando come through the door. Watched him assess the diner in the 4 seconds it took to walk from the entrance to the booth. Watched him choose the seat with the wall behind it and the sight line to the door. Noted all of this without expression. Orlando sat down. A waitress appeared. They ordered coffee. She left. Neither of them spoke immediately. Darius looked at him the way he looked at everything that required a serious assessment. Directly. Without performance. You came to the rally, he said. Yes. And the church hall yesterday. Yes. And you have not done what you came to Atlanta to do. Orlando looked at him. No, he said. Darius nodded slowly. The coffee arrived. He wrapped both hands around his cup. I have worked for Naledi Adams for 3 years, he said. In that time I have watched her make decisions that I did not always understand immediately but have never once had reason to regret. She sees things in people that other people miss. It is not mysticism. It is the specific quality of attention that comes from having done a great deal of personal work and earned the clarity that follows it. He paused. She has decided something about you, he said. I don't fully understand it yet. But I am sitting across from you in this diner at 8 in the morning because I trust her enough to take it seriously. Orlando said nothing. I need to ask you something, Darius said. And I need you to answer it honestly. Not because I am threatening you. Not because I have leverage. Because the woman I work for has extended something to you that she does not extend carelessly. And I need to know if it is safe to do so. Ask. Darius looked at him directly. Are you going to hurt her? The question sat between them. Simple. The only question that actually mattered. Orlando looked at his coffee. Then at Darius. No, he said. Not quickly. Not with the smooth delivery of someone producing a rehearsed answer. Fully. From somewhere real. No, he said again. I am not. Darius looked at him for a long moment. The particular assessment of a man who had spent 18 years learning to tell the difference between what people said and what they meant. Then he picked up his coffee. Drank. Set it down. She has a community breakfast tomorrow morning, he said. Southwest Atlanta. She will be there at 7:30 to set up. He stood. Left money on the table for both coffees. Looked at Orlando one more time. Don't make me regret this, he said. Then he walked out of the diner. Orlando sat alone in the booth. His coffee in front of him. The diner going about its Thursday morning around him. A man making his breakfast at the counter. Two women in a booth across the aisle talking about something that made one of them laugh suddenly and fully. The waitress refilling cups without being asked. The ordinary machinery of a morning. He sat inside it. Not at the perimeter. Not mapping exits. Just sitting in a booth in a diner on Ponce de Leon in Atlanta, Georgia, with a coffee going cold in front of him. He thought about what Darius had asked. Are you going to hurt her? He thought about how he had answered. Not quickly. From somewhere real. He picked up his coffee. It was cold now. He drank it anyway. Then he left money on the table. Walked out into the Atlanta morning. Took out his phone. Opened the unnamed number. Typed a message. I met your campaign manager this morning. He stared at it. Sent it. The reply came in 40 seconds. I know. How was the coffee? He looked at the message. For the first time in 10 years Orlando Siciliani almost smiled. Not quite. But almost. He put the phone in his pocket and walked back toward the hotel. And the Atlanta morning was warm around him and ordinary and completely indifferent to the fact that something inside him was rearranging itself into a configuration he did not yet have a name for. But was beginning. Slowly, carefully, with the specific caution of a man who has not trusted anything in a very long time. To recognize. So that is where we leave them today. A woman who knew exactly who he was. And chose to hand him a card anyway. A man who had every reason to leave it on the floor. And put it in his pocket instead. Think about what just happened this episode. Naledi Adams looked at a man she had been tracking for 18 months. A man whose presence at political events had preceded 4 separate withdrawals and deaths. A man who arrived at her rally with a job to do. And she handed him a card with her number on it. Not because she was naive. Not because she did not understand the risk. But because she saw something in his face that her file on him could not explain. And Naledi Adams does not ignore what she sees. And Orlando Siciliani. He lied to his handler twice this week. He attended a community lunch he had no operational reason to attend. He took a card from a woman's hand and drove back to a hotel room and picked it up and put it down 3 times before he called her. He sat in a diner this morning across from a man who asked him directly, "Are you going to hurt her?" and answered from somewhere real. He has not done what he came to Atlanta to do. He is not going to do what he came to Atlanta to do. He does not know this yet. Not in words. But somewhere beneath the discipline and the sealed architecture of 10 years of a life organized around a belief he had never once questioned. He already knows. There is a senator on the top floor of a Peachtree Street building who believes he has a management problem under control. He does not know that his instrument has been sitting in a diner drinking cold coffee with the campaign manager of the woman he was sent to remove. He does not know that his instrument has a notebook with the word architect in it. He does not know that his instrument almost smiled this morning. Almost. He will find out. And when he does he will reach for the secondary approach. The Martin file. Thomas Martin. 9 years of a marriage that Naledi Adams has never discussed publicly. A divorce that cost her things that were not only financial. A word, inequitable, spoken by a bitter man in a Johannesburg business publication that nobody in America has read. Not yet. But that is next week. Right now. Tonight. Orlando Siciliani is in a hotel room in Midtown Atlanta with a notebook and a card and a phone that has an unnamed number in its recent calls that he has looked at 4 times today. And Naledi Adams is in her office on Auburn Avenue working through the post-event analytics from the community lunch with one eye on her laptop and one thought she keeps returning to without deciding to. The way he said no. Not quickly. From somewhere real. She has built everything she has from the practice of seeing people clearly. He saw him clearly. And what she saw was not only what she expected to find. Come back for episode 3. Because the phone calls are about to begin. And the phone calls are where everything that cannot happen in public starts to happen anyway. One question at a time. One honest answer at a time. One conversation at a time. Until 2 people who have every reason to stay exactly where they are start moving. Slowly, carefully, without entirely meaning to, toward each other. Come back. Because this one is just getting started. And the best part? Neither of them sees it coming.